This is a video of Tilli's 2-week custom program. Tilli has graduated through our intermediate program and is ready for advanced training. Here are some examples of her loose leash walking classes. The goal of every walk is to keep a loose leash. You can see throughout the video the small cues and corrections I make with the collar. I use this as a form of communication if she steps out of bounds in a direction that I don't want her to. It also helps me redirect her focus back to me, instead of sniffing the ground or chasing off after a squirrel. Focusing on me also increases her confidence. When she trusts her handler, she is far more accepting of new and scary things in the environment. Throughout the start of this video, I'm using what is called a prong collar. We use one brand of prong collar here at Stat Dog Training, and it is the Herm Springer brand. The reason we won't use any other type of prong collar is because we really like the safety features that this one has. We've never had one fail on us, and the prongs have a very good curve, which prevents, even in the worst case scenario if we had a dog panic and back out, that no harm would come to the dog because they are curved so they could never poke into the neck. What this does is it just serves as something to get their mind off of whatever they're looking at. We don't just throw the collar on the dog and get to work. We make sure we set it up properly. The way we set every training aid up, whether it be a regular leash with a flat collar or a training collar or an e-collar or any other device, we make sure we teach the dog that they have the power to turn it off. We simply will take the lead and we will pull in a direction, we'll pat our legs and we'll tell the dog to come on. When they do, we release the pressure of either the prong collar, the e-collar, or the regular collar. By preventing dogs from feeling trapped and realizing we are the ones using those devices and that they have the power to turn them off, we prevent things that commonly pop up in dog training, such as leash reactivity or aggression being caused by an improperly used training aid. Leash reactivity is a really big deal, and it's very important for us to continue with our dogs and to help them know that they are not, in fact, trapped. Because when a dog feels trapped, you take away their ability to flee. If they don't have their ability to flee, they're either going to submit in a very bad way, which can cause submission urination and a very unpleasurable time for your dog, or they're going to fight back. And if they fight back, then that gives your dog a really bad name, and it's not necessary, as your dog is not aggressive, they're simply feeling trapped. On a working walk like this, I will tell the dog no if they go to sniff the ground. This is because I'm trying to work Tilli's brain as well as her body right now. This is going to tire her out about twice as fast. If they sniff the ground, their nose is to the ground, their head is to the clouds, and you've essentially lost them in most cases. Of course, they can be trained to listen to you over top of that, but right now she's an adolescent and that's a whole lot to ask from her. By taking her off of a path, she can't use any form of pathing, so she's having to listen to me and watch what I'm doing. I have her sit and wait and relax in the presence of vehicles. I have her look at me, and that helps her relax. She's more than happy to wait for a very long time. She's been doing fantastic with her downtown work. You notice how she broke a little bit and she stood up. I reissued the command. She immediately sat back down and looked back towards me. That's exactly what I want to see. Right now with her at an intermediate level, I'm not expecting her to be absolutely flawless with every command, but I do expect her to follow through with the command within 2 asks, and I do expect to see her putting in an effort to build the length of things like focus, sit, stay. Here we're working a little bit around people. This is something that was very hard for her at start. She would definitely try to turn around and bolt in any direction, really. She'd bolt forward, sideways, backwards, and just go into a full-on panic. You notice here I actually have taken her off of the Herm Springer training collar and onto her regular flat collar. She has progressed so far in her leash skills that we can walk her without it. For her, I'd like to give you the option of getting it or not. I am very honest with people. If I think that they're going to need the extra help, I push it very hard. However, with her, it's going to be a little harder for you to learn everything without the prong training collar, but she is very, very good even just on a regular collar. So it's entirely up to you. You can notice I'm having to give her a bit stronger cues and corrections with this collar, and that's because it's not a training collar. She's barely even feeling it. She's still gaining some sensitivity, and there is also the opportunity for her to kind of revert and start pulling a little bit more. However, if you use this in conjunction with the e-collar and use an e-collar correction, that'll prevent that from ever occurring. And what I did, she did have a couple instances where she tried to run after a squirrel or a leaf floating. So what I do in that is I tell them no, but in addition to telling them no, I make sure I redirect that focus. Even something aggressive, even something reactive. So she's barking, lunging, she sees a dog she doesn't like or a person she doesn't like. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a step back, I'm going to tell her no, and then I'm going to redirect her with a treat or a toy. What that does is it gives her an outlet for that energy, because the last thing we want to do is make her bottle that energy, because it's going to explode at some point, and that's not something we want to see happen. So make sure when she's doing something wrong, we're always redirecting to something good. Make it a positive experience. We've weaned her off of treats while walking. She'll also do all of her commands without treats. However, to help your bond and to get her settled back in with you, I do recommend you use treats at least for the first week, and just keep some on hand just in case an issue arises. I always make sure I have treats in my pocket or treats on hand just in case something happens, because it's far better to have a little piece of kibble and the dog has a great day versus not having that kibble on hand and there was no reward for her difficult situation, so she really had a terrible time. Really the only issue I've been having with her downtown lately is she will try to go and sniff people, but that is very good compared to what I was seeing of her just straight fleeing away. I did also take her to meet some family today, and she did very, very well. She walked right into the house. She met my mother and was slightly cautious, but no barks, no growls, went right up and was best friends. She's definitely a little more cautious towards men, which is also very common. Things you can do for that is just have some visitors, have more people give her treats, and with time, you should see that go away. I will go ahead and mention she is probably getting close to or is in her second big fear period. What this is this is a time where adolescent dogs are learning what's scary and what's not. So if you can't make it a positive experience, it's best not to do it. So again, always have those treats on hand so that you can make scary things positive. Things that happen during this time period in a dog's life really have a big effect on them and their temperament, which is why if you send an adolescent dog to a training program that's specifically only for dogs at about 6 months of age, that always raises a big red flag for me, because that's generally the age where people start using corrective aids, and generally people that have an age requirement on something like that are going to be far too hard on the dog. If someone's very hard on the dog at this age, you have a very high probability of them becoming aggressive later on in the future, because things weren't fair for them when they were a child. Right here you see a beautiful example of her progress around very scary things. You can see she's looking, she's seeing, you can see her get a little nervous, you kind of see her tongue start going in her mouth. You can notice, see she's pulling off to the side a little bit, she's sniffing around, her jaw's shut. All those things are things you can look for her being nervous. But see, even when really scary noises happen, and this was loud, it was quite frightening. So see, she looks back, now she recovers. And that's a beautiful thing. She's recovering, and that is by far the most important thing. She's recovering, takes a treat. As long as she's eating, she's not too stressed out. Here are some examples of her command progress. Here we are the other day in the field working on recall. We worked a whole lot on recall this week because that is a very, very important command. It's very important that that be very solid. And I want to see her coming to me. I don't want to see her do a drive-by. I don't want her to come by, say hey, and walk away. I want her to come and sit and wait for me to release her to go, or at very bare minimum, come and make some kind of contact with my body. What you saw before was just a basic come. This was come while she was mid-playing with the toy, and then I released her back to play with the toy again. Here's some impulse control work we did with the leave it command. So I was playing tug with her. I told her to drop it. I put my hand under her jaw because she was reluctant to drop it. And then with that, she was very happy to drop it for me. And then I kind of increased her prey drive by swinging the rope, and she was very happy to leave it for me. Make sure you're always releasing her for things like that as well. Don't let her just take off after the toy at will. That's disobeying. You want her to be willing to wait until released with the go-ahead command. Here we are on a little hike. We did several of these throughout her stay here. What this does is it gives her the opportunity to learn how to informally walk with me. I'm not asking her to do a perfect heel. All I was doing was asking her to stay near me and still be receptive to commands. It is important that dogs have structured walks as well as unstructured walks. She is old enough that she can tell the difference between the two now, and I simply tell dogs to go ahead when I want them to go off and sniff and have a good time but still stay receptive and listening for me. Notice how I'm not telling her heel. When I want her to come to me, I'm just saying, come on, and patting my leg. That's just a gentle reminder for her to stay near me without me requiring her to heel. Because I, right now, don't want to make sure she stays in a perfect heel. I want her to have some fun. On the flip side of that, here is Ryan working on her formal off-leash heel. This is a very advanced thing, but we went ahead and started her doing some of it, and she is progressing very, very well. Obviously, she does get distracted from time to time, and I don't require her to maintain it for more than a couple minutes at a time right now, but she is making really great progress with it. Here's the progress with the place command. This is simply a formal go to bed. I don't tell them to stay on the place. I expect them to wait on the place until released. You can build this slowly over time. The best way to build this is simply while you're watching TV. Give her the place command, give her something to chew on her bed, and if she is to get up, you can either issue an e-collar correction, or you can simply get up and walk her back to her bed, reissue the place command, and then sit back down. With time, she will get really tired of being returned to that place, and she'll realize she's just supposed to stay there indefinitely until you let her go. This is something we can do to help our dogs relax, and when she's comfortable doing that in your home, then you can start adding distractions to that, so that when you have guests come over, when you have people come to the door, you can tell her place, she'll run happily to her place, chew her toy, eat a bone, or just lay there calmly. Here we have some of her recall around other dogs. Here we have her working with Mishka.
Sit. Down.
Ryan has definitely been her person during her stay here. She's really enjoyed accompanying him through his daily barn chores. Here's just a bit of an example of some of what my advanced training looks like. This is Mishka. She's a little bit rusty. We don't really do this kind of thing too much. She's generally helping me out around the house and helping me get around town and getting groceries. But I've spent a whole lot of time building her focus and getting her to listen to me in all situations, regardless of distractions. She really, really loves tennis balls. She would rather play with tennis balls than eat. And what you see me doing here is I'm just going through a list of her different commands, showing off her rapid bark, which she loves to do. And by shooting off these commands super fast, I'm keeping her on her toes, I'm keeping her engaged, and she's having a blast. I do recommend that you continue with the impulse control exercises like this. I will note that she is having a bit of trouble tugging right now as she lost her baby canines while she was here, and her big girl canines are just starting to grow in, so she's having a bit of a tough time tugging on that rope. Bit of a note about her manners. Make sure she sits and waits for food and water. Make sure she sits before exiting and entering doors. Make sure she's not pushing you out of the way on stairs or through hallways. Make sure she's being very respectful.